Mayur, you can start the session.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, just wait for 2 more minutes and then you can introduce the speaker so that we can start. Yeah?
Okay, okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, good morning to all of you. I, Mayur Panchabrao Nare. It's my great pleasure to introduce our great speaker for the day who is going to talk to us on the topic storytelling to photography. For this quality policy orientation program series, there could not have been an appropriate person than her to enlighten, to embrace, and guide all of us. I absolutely delighted to present Nina Majumdar, our speaker for today, who is a lifestyle and product photographer. Let us welcome Nina ma'am for her precious time. Thank you ma'am for your present. Before we proceed further, let me share her journey. It started 12 years back with a borrowed Nikon D15. Intrigued by the level of control one can achieve on DSLR camera, she joined the Chicago Photography Academy in 2012. Her style of photography is often labeled as moody and minimalistic. She is adept at capturing authentic moments without losing the narrative. Some of her portraits work was featured on the BBC network. Besides portraiture, her love for telling visual stories also extends to food photography. Being from an academic background, she enjoyed teaching and inspiring amateur photographers to reach their highest level of creativity. She has taught photography at Purdue University, Indiana, US, and conducted multiple workshops in US as well as in India. So, I'll not take much of time because everyone is eagerly waiting for your insight, ma'am. I, Mayur Nare, on behalf of Sardar Patel College of Engineering, welcome you to embrace the occasion. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for the warm introduction. I hope everyone is able to hear me.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm also very excited to, inspire all of you on this lovely morning. So, good morning to everyone. And I would start presenting now. Okay. So, I hope everyone is able to see my slide. I'll be talking about storytelling through photography. If you face any technical problems or if you have any issues with the audio quality or visuals, please let me know so I can fix it. So I'm, as Mayur just said, I'm Neena Majumdar, and I run my photography company, which is Pia Muni Photography, and the website you can see on the screen. I also have an Instagram account. So
Sorry,
I'll
ma'am.
just,
Uh, Ma'am, your screen is not visible.
oh, it's not visible. Hold on. Is it visible now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, hold on. Can you see now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So we fixed the major issue here. I'll just tell you through pictures my story. So I always had interest in painting and photography as growing up. I would like sketch all day if it was possible. But my profession and my career was always science, and I was a biomedical researcher doing cancer research and basic diabetes research, which made me into a research specialist in Chicago. And this was before COVID times. So I was like already using all the PPE that the world now uses, and I was very comfortable using those. But during my time, like in my scientific career, I used to miss my artistic side a lot. So during the evenings and weekends, I would go to my Chicago Photography Academy, which I joined for a year for a program in digital photography, and that actually inspired me to click more and more pictures and click them with a more, thought process and more creativity. And gradually, I actually steered away from science and I started taking big assignments. And now I'm just doing photography like from, I don't know, so many years now. And I moved back to India, to Bombay, and it's actually a lot of fun now. Like, I really enjoy what I do. So I'll be talking about few tips and techniques how you can tell a very good story just by pictures, using pictures, and you can approach different kinds of projects through photography. So I'm here to talk about meaningful photography, not just, taking a picture just for the sake of it. So here are a few tips that I'll talk about and some more, and then I will talk about how I approached a project or how I made a photo story through just photography and also a bit of videography. And then I will like do a Q&A session so you can ask any questions that you have given our time constraint. I'll try my best. So they say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Is it really true? Can a picture really say 1,000 words? And is it ever possible to compare writing with photography? Let's find out. So in writing, there are letters and alphabets, which are the basic components of the writing or a writer. But in photography, those letters or alphabets are actually pixels or points of light of varying degrees of brightness or darkness, which actually make a photograph. And in writing, the letters actually form meaningful words, right? But in photography, those points of light or pixels, they form what? They form lines in photography. So, like if you think about graphic representation, so those will be the lines of light. And similarly, in writing, the words will form meaningful sentences, right, which will convey a message. In photography, those lines will form shapes. So it's all like if you think about visually, so these are like geometrically also, the lines will form shapes. And in writing, if you're writing a story, it would not be very meaningful if you don't have a theme. In photography, the same thing happens. If you don't have a main subject or emotion or a message that you want to convey, then the photograph is meaningless. So all of these things are governed by these lines, points of light, shapes, are governed by your theme or the story that you want to tell. So yeah, you can say that writing and photography conceptually can be similar. But it's not a very easy medium to use for communication, and I'll talk about that now. It's really challenging and it has its own limitations because just like painting or drawing, photography also begins with a two-dimensional rectangular space, and it doesn't have any depth, right? And all you have is like a like an empty canvas, and it's up to you what you want to show and what you don't want to show. So here is the thing: we have five senses, but photography or like painting, it's just visual sensory. So it's just, through the sense of sight, you're trying to make the viewer feel all the rest of the senses as well. So your photography should be such that if somebody sees your picture, they should be able to feel like the texture, and they should be reminded of the sounds of the place. If it's about food, it will their brain should remind them of the taste of the food, like uh, even the smell sometimes. Like if you take a picture of a religious place, you would be reminded of the incense, the smell of like agarbattis and all that. So, or like flowers. So the photography or even like painting and all, it should be such that they should be able to transport the viewer to rest of the senses as well. Not just it shouldn't just be very beautiful picture. It should also be appealing to all the other senses. So in that sense, it's actually very challenging doing photography. But the major difference between photography and painting is that in the painting, you actually start with an empty canvas. So you have nothing and you keep adding elements on the canvas and it becomes complete. But in photography, you have to actually remove distracting elements so your story can reveal itself. So here we are talking about adding and subtracting. So elimination is very important in photography. You actually start with a lot of stuff like all around you when you look around yourself. There is just so much stuff like objects, trees, and it sometimes becomes very difficult for the viewer to figure out what are you really trying to tell here. So it's very important to think about that. So that lands us to our next tip, which is less is more. And by that, what I mean is that you need to simplify your message. How do you do that? You do it by actually recognizing that what is important in my frame and what is not important in my frame. If there is something which, if you remove, it doesn't take away anything from the message or the story, you better take it out from the frame. So here we are talking about composition. Like I'm not talking about taking it out uh, in Photoshop or post processing. I'm talking about when you're taking the picture. Think about like, do I need to step closer to my subject? So my subject only is taking major part of the frame, or do I need to move sideways or change my angles so I don't include anything around the edges of my photo which is not important or which is actually distracting, and my message will be like not very much visible to my viewer. So that is very important. So for example, in this picture, I wanted to focus on this school girl. I was doing a project on child education, and mainly focusing on girl education in Varanasi, India. So the light was falling on her face very beautifully, and there was actually the light. There was no other light, direct light falling on the other students in the background, and she was sitting very close to the door in the classroom. So it helped a lot, and I recognized that Everything else was not that important. It would just be very distracting. And I wanted to focus on her face as only because she was a very good, like she was a very diligent student and she was working and focusing in the class. So, and also like uh, in an abstract way, also the light was signifying the education that she was getting. So that's how I tried to simplify my message. So when I talk about simplifying, you have to think about the composition, if it's simple or not. Like don't make it look very complicated in that sense. And also simplifying your message or storytelling, as well as your lighting. Like if you have three, four kinds of lights, it clashes a lot and it doesn't come off very aesthetically, or it doesn't look very, very good. So in the second picture, as you can see, like I tried to isolate my subject. Like I deliberately clicked this little kid only when he was sitting all alone in that one corner when the rest of his classmates were on the other side of the room, and he was focusing on his work. And it was a candid shot. He was not aware at that time. Like he was aware that I'm there, but he did not know that I'm actually shooting him at that moment. So that helped in isolating my subject and simplifying my message again. And also compositionally, I didn't try to include a lot of distraction or other people in the background, so that also helps. So all this would happen if you know way ahead, like what questions you want to ask before you're taking the picture. So that actually helps in all of these things. So let's talk about that. So when you look at this image, think about what questions come to your mind when you look at it. Where is this girl going? Why is she not wearing any shoes? It looks like she's wearing a school uniform. She's in a rural setting. So I've already conveyed so many things about this person through the photograph. Just by looking at the picture, you can tell that. So this was the same project that I did in Uttar Pradesh about girl education and child education. And the questions that I was asking before I even went on location was like, I had done some homework and I had asked that uh, how is education, look like, how is the approach of the community towards education there, and especially on girls' education, the passion of the teachers, the students, and the social activists there, like how much are they contributing, and how do these communities live? How are they going to school? And is the school very nearby, or is it like very, very far off? So that's why like I had focused on this girl child, and I wanted pictures. I wanted to show how they are going to school and how they are living. So the context as well as the message, both I wanted to convey through this image. So when we are asking questions, it's a tricky balance. We should try to achieve a balance between what questions are we asking and what questions we want the viewer to ask. What that means is that you cannot really show everything in the image, right? It's not possible. And it's actually desirable not to show each and everything. You also want the viewer to ask few questions when they're looking at the image. Like, for example, when I'm looking at this image, the questions that, whatever questions that come to my mind are the ones which I am keeping open for interpretation. It's also called abstract art in that sense. So uh, you should try to, have some kind of mystery that will intrigue the viewer. If there is no mystery in your image, if you're showing each and everything, then what would happen is that the attention span of the viewer will be not that much. But if there is something which is mysterious or intriguing or something which is out of the ordinary, then the viewer will stop for more than 5 seconds, which is like the average attention span that we have in this digital age. And the more time the viewer spends on your image, the more there is the possibility of the viewer to like the image because it's making them think, it's making their brain work. So always try to remember that. Now you might be confused like I was like 12, 13 years back when I was studying photography, that what genre of photography can I pick? It's a really hard decision. But when you're approaching a project, you're actually expected to be quite versatile. And there are so many genres of photography, like street photography and people portrait photography, product photography, food photography, photojournalistic photography. Then there are nature photography, like landscapes, wildlife, macro, and so on, right? So it's a little confusing, but when you're thinking about telling a story, you cannot ignore so many different aspects of that place or the story that you want to tell. For example, if you want to cover, let's say, the potters community like Kumharwara in Dharavi area, you cannot ignore like the people over there. If you just take the picture of the finished art or the pots or like the kulhars and all that, you cannot just take images of those and ignore the photos of the artists who have made those, right? So and then you cannot ignore like how they are making it, so those will be environmental portraits. And then you cannot like ignore the way they are living there or the area that they are living there. So you'll have to take images of the street, of the like you'll have to take few landscape shots to tell the full story, right? So but it the genres will have their own rules and their own techniques, but the underlying rules or the principles which are required to tell the story through all these different kinds of genres, for example, the lighting and composition, those basic rules will remain the same. So it doesn't matter. Like if you are good with photography, you can capture any subject very comfortably. So I would suggest like people who are interested in photography, try to carry the camera all the time with you, like wherever you are, and try to capture each and everything that makes you feel something or that has moved you in even in your daily life, and that would actually help you to understand the different nuances between different genres. Doing your homework is a very basic thing that everybody says, like even in school and in college now you will hear this a lot, that do your homework. But it actually like helps a lot all your life. Like every time you get a project, be it photography or even in future when you're taking jobs and all, you would actually have to do your homework. But what do I actually mean by that is when you get a project, how do you prepare yourself before you are actually on site or on location when it comes to photography? So, as Mark Twain, the great author and poet, had said, the secret of getting ahead is getting started. So if you don't start ahead, like if you don't start on time or as soon as it's possible, then you won't be able to give the extra edge to your work or to your results. So I completely believe in that, and I can tell you for sure it helps a lot by getting started really ahead of time. So in my context, what I do, like how do I follow this? So right after a project is finalized with my clients, I sit down and I do my own research, and I actually like I write it down like in my notes or somewhere, all the things that I know about the project, the area, what do I have to capture. If it's about the client, I will figure out how this person is, what do they like, what they don't like, what do they want me to capture, their career and everything. As much as possible, I'll do my research and I'll write down all the relevant points. After that, I will meet up with my clients or stakeholders, and I will have a lot of discussion, and I'll take down their points and I'll take my briefings really, really seriously, and I'll take copious and meticulous notes. So why I do that is because what story do they want to tell? They have hired me for telling their story, unless it's a personal project. So I would really want that their communication would come across seamlessly through my photography. So I would work really hard on that part as well. And then I would also try to find similarities or like any differences between the notes that I had made and between the clients. And I'll also give my own input, whatever based on the research that I did. Then I would, we actually like, I do this with my clients during those discussions. I will figure out what do I need to photograph for sure. If there are any people I need to photograph, who would be those people? Where will I find those people? And when will I need to photograph? So, for example, what would be the best time of the day to photograph that for that particular story? Will that align with the best light that I'll have during the day or not? Will I need any extra light? And if there is any special event, like a yearly event or a festival, will it help me in the story? So I will plan my shoots accordingly. I would also figure out how I will photograph all these things. Will I need any extra gear than what I already have? Will I need to rent any equipment or borrow or I don't know, like buy any equipment? Will I need any extra lenses? Will I need an extra camera? Will I need any assistance regarding the equipment? So then I will let my assistants know like how many assistants will I need or not if it's going to be a solo project. So everything is planned ahead of time. Like you can say at least couple of weeks before I actually start shooting, or even a month ahead. And then what sometimes helps is writing down a sentence that would describe exactly what I want to capture. That helps a lot. And I write it down in my phone, like in the same note where I have the other stuff about the same project. And sometimes even writing one word helps a lot. And if I remember that word, it's like the mantra. So, for example, if I'm capturing street food and I want to capture the people on the street who actually make the food and sell, what would I remember? Like, what would be the magic word that would help me? I maybe the word can be taste. So if I remember the word taste or yummy, I will keep on clicking pictures that would denote that, right? So that helps in actually streamlining our thought process and it acts as a blueprint. So after that, I usually create a mood board, and mood board means like finding pictures and textures and colors, maybe in the net or even in magazines, and you can like put it all in one rectangular frame, and that would be like a visual representation of all the discussions that we had, and we want to capture shots that would be not exactly like this, but those will be like guiding lines for us. And then I'll share the mood board with the client, and the client can say, "Yeah, that looks good. We can that looks awesome actually," or if the client has to add some other inputs, they can add. So all of these things will then describe us, like that would help us in governing the types of shots that we need. So there's a lot of actually homework that goes in. Like when you look at these National Geographic shots and all, they do a lot of homework. They actually also do practical homework. They would go there and shoot at different times of the day, different even months of the year to figure out what would be the best way to tell the story. And then when you actually see the image in the magazine or on their account, Instagram account or website, this has like taken them 6 months of work for that one image. So like it's not just like press the shutter and you get your perfect picture. It's not like that. So how do you like achieve that kind of expertise? It's like technical details they say that are very important. Everybody says, oh, like you should pay attention to your techniques. But what I feel is like as writing, like or painting, you have to pay attention to your basic skills, right? So it's like that. If you know how to speak a language, if you know the words, the vocabulary, you can talk about something very smoothly or fluently in that language. Similarly, in photography, if you know your rules, you can use those very effectively. So it's like language skills. So I'll be talking a bit about those, but I won't get completely into like the details of all the techniques, and you can always like ask me in the Q&A session. The most important elements of photography are light, composition, and color, and these add so much visual interest in the photograph that your viewer cannot like ignore your picture. So let's talk about light first. As a photographer, it's very important to be really passionate about light. So, what I mean by that is seeing light and recognizing what is good light and exploring what you can do with that light and what you cannot do. So, when I talk about seeing and recognizing light, what I mean by that is when you look at light falling on an object, or where is the light coming from, the direction, how intense or how strong the light is, and what's the color of the light. You have to pay attention to these things. Otherwise, like it would be very hard for you to be a good photographer. If you know your light, you can also figure out if the light is sufficient or not. Will you need any artificial light or not? And will this lighting style truly represent the mood or the story that you want to convey? Because lighting can actually, I will show you just now that how lighting can actually change the look of your image completely. So, does lighting intensity affect the quality of light? Yes, it does. So, if you have hard and soft light, by hard light, what I mean is a really small or a far away source of light. For example, the direct sun. The sun is, even though it's very big in size, because it's so far away, it acts like a point of light. So when you're out in the sun, and if you place any object or even like a person in the sun, you will see the shadows are really, really hard. So there is very much edge definition in the shadows. You can actually draw where the shadow starts and where it ends. But if you have soft light, which means that the source of the light is very, very big or it's very close to the subject. So it will act like a soft light. With what I mean by that is the shadows will be very diffused and you cannot really tell where the shadows are starting and where they are ending. So what happens when you have hard and soft light? Does it affect the look of the subject? Yes, it does. So when you have hard light, you can see this person's face has really like dramatic shadows. So it adds more drama to the image. If you want to, if your story is about drama, you should try to shoot only in hard light. But if your story is about showing, nurturing or warmth and softness of emotion, then try to use soft light because it has less drama. And another factor is also when you use more drama or like hard light, you start seeing more texture. So you can see, like, you can actually see the texture of his skin. But if you want smooth skin, if you want to show, like, if you're taking picture of kids, for example, and if you want to show smooth skin, or if it's a beauty shot, something like that, then try to use soft light because you will see that the skin looks much more smoother and more flattering for beauty photography. Next, I will talk about composition. Composition is very important in photography, both geometry and composition, because they actually help the viewer to find out what you're trying to tell. They help your viewer to figure out what's the main element in the photograph. Through these geometrical elements like lines and shapes, you are actually helping the viewer, like you're guiding the eyes of the viewer to pay attention to the main part of the image. For example, leading lines. So in leading lines, your the eyes are like traveling through the lines toward the main part of the image, which is this person who's standing in the back. So it helps, it acts like a roadmap. Patterns are also used. Patterns means repeating elements in the image. So when you have patterns, our eyes, like human eyes or human brains, they actually love patterns a lot. It looks very soothing and attractive. But as you can see, there are these patterns of windows. But what you should try to do when you show patterns is try to break the pattern, because patterns themselves wouldn't look very interesting. After some time, the viewer will be like, yeah, so what? But if you have something that is like breaking the pattern, it will make them force their eyes to, stay on the image for a bit more longer, and it will add that intriguing element that I was talking about in the image. So it adds interest in the image when you break the pattern. Uh, Framing is also used. Framing means that when you use uh, similar elements, like which go with the theme of the photograph, at the edges of the image, so that your subject is restricted in an area, and that actually helps in restricting the attention of the viewer at a particular area in the image, which will actually contain the main subject. So in this case, this person is enjoying the nature and he's surrounded by trees. The trees and the ground, they act as a frame, which are also similar to the theme of the image. So your eyes are focused here in the, like inside the framing of the trees. So that helps. You're basically helping the viewer to find out your story. That's the whole idea. A balance is also used a lot. Balance means that using different kinds of elements or similar elements on two halves of the image. It could be like left to right or top to bottom. And it helps in, again, like it gives soothingness to the image. It makes it look very attractive as well, because our, human brains, they love balance a lot. Like if this goat wasn't present here, only the kids, then it wouldn't have looked very, very complete. Now it looks complete. uh, I'll talk about color now. I'm really passionate about color, uh, representing color in photography, and picking the right colors, because colors actually set the mood for the image. And different colors, they represent different kinds of mood. So, for example, red, it signifies energy, excitement, passion, or even anger. So in this image, I used we deliberately actually used this red sari because we wanted to show excitement and energy in the image. Orange signifies warmth, happiness, and enthusiasm. So in this product shoot that I did, I used, like, it was like a happy image. So it was about office stationery. And yellow signifies cheerfulness, friendliness, and creativity. So this is what, like, it has a lot of yellow tones. So I wanted to signify these kinds of moods. And green signifies calm, natural, balanced growth. This is not my picture, but this is a very good example of that, how green can denote these values. And blue signifies serenity, gold, sadness, and trust. So I wanted to signify serenity through this image. And the water is really, really cold, so that's another thing. And purple signifies spirituality, mystery, luxury. So we had chosen a purple outfit to show this ostentatious lifestyle, or like really luxurious lifestyle of this blogger. And purple signifies innovation, transformation, and non-conformity. So in this ink in water shot that I did, I used magenta a lot to signify that, like, innovation. And also, like, these colors were changing constantly, so transformation is another thing. Um, in graphics and in all kinds of like visual arts, the color cylinder is like a guiding map when it comes to picking the perfect colors for your imagery. The color cylinder is actually this particular cylinder in which the circumference of the cylinder or the edges represent different hues of color. Hues means like the colors that we say red, blue, yellow, green. These are actually called hues in technical terms. And the axis of the cylinder represents the value of the color. Value means how like light or dark the color will be, or how much white is added in the color, or how much black is added in the color, rendering the color very dark or very like light. The distance from the axis to the like edges of the cylinder represents the saturation of the color or how rich the color is. The closer you get to the axis of the cylinder, the more grayness will be there in the color. And the farther you go, the color will be more and more richer. So how does this help? So if you take a slice of this cylinder, you get actually what we call color wheel. And that color wheel represents, like it helps us to pick colors that you'll be using in your visual imagery or in your photographs. So we have different color schemes that like all illustrators and even like, movie makers, they use that. Uh, Art directors, photographers, painters, all of these people, set designers, they use these color schemes. And these are the most basic color schemes. There are so many more. So complementary colors are the ones in which if you take that slice of the cylinder and you get this color wheel, right? And the colors which sit opposite to each other, for example, red, green, and yellow, purple, for example, orange, blue, these are called complementary colors. And why they are called so? Because they look very good with each other. They look very soothing to the human eyes. And like these color combinations are therefore used, deliberately when it comes to picking colors for any kind of visual art. So an example of complementary color scheme here, red and green, is this image, and it looks fabulous because of this kind of color combination. Next is monochrome. So what you do is you pick one color and then you have only the different shades of the same color in the image. That's called using monochrome. So this is a very good example of monochrome color scheme, and the only color that this picture has is actually red. So there are different shades of red here. Next is analogous color schemes. It means in the color wheel, the colors, 2 to 4 colors, which are sitting actually next to each other, you will only use those. So in this case, it's orange, yellow, green. So this is an example of analogous color scheme. In this case, blue, light blue and dark blue and like a bit of greenish blue is used. So it looks very, very soothing because of this kind of color scheme. And you can read more about this in this link. Uh, so I have talked a lot about doing your homework, and that also falls under pre-visualization, or like you're actually imagining that you're there on the field or in the set and how you will be taking the pictures, right? But the pre-visualization also occurs before you press the shutter. So you cannot just like keep doing click, 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 and you might have taken 100 images of the same thing and in the same style. So what you should do is like you should try to think about what moved you and how can you capture that emotion in its true essence. So as Ansel Adams said, you don't take a photograph, you actually make it. So think about it. So I'll talk a bit about how I approached a project. I was capturing this. project, which is a tribal, agricultural, and very artistic community in Jawhar, Maharashtra. And it was a very beautiful place and mostly rural. And they had lots of artists and they did Warli paintings and they had these mogra plantations and they would supply the jasmine, the mogra flower buds to the other flower market. So they were like thriving business like community as well as lots of artists. The women over there didn't have much access to connectivity because most of the smartphones were owned by the men in the family. Um, and the men would also be, selling their artistic and the crafts in the main markets and to other like urban companies and all. And the problem was, like, even though some of the women were quite advanced and they were like following their career, for example, this lady was actually a teacher and she wanted to teach in a like a bigger school and she was doing the course and all that. But she didn't have much phone signal. And even though, there were towers and all that, they would have to like walk all the way near the uh, phone towers and then send a WhatsApp message or then like download a file. So it was very difficult for them because even though in India there is connectivity everywhere, but there are these small pockets where there is basically no internet or like no 4G. And you have to like, they would just like go walk 5 kilometers and go near the tower and then, access internet, which was really sad. So I was working with IIT Bombay and they were helping in establishing technologies and like cheap technologies which will help them to get some connectivity near the places where they're living. And they also had other organizations which were helping in establishing land networks and local access radios and all through which they can communicate with each other. So I wanted to show all of this through my photography, and I right now told you the story just through the pictures. And that's how you approach any kind. Like there were so many other pictures, but I just wanted like this is all I could fit in the screen. So you get the point, right? Uh, Photography is an art and a skill. So, like any other skill, effective photography can also be developed with lots and lots of practice and also by studying the work of other photographers. If you like what I taught right now, you can subscribe to my mailing list on my website. And I also have classes and workshops continuously like throughout the year. And you can see my work at Piyamuni Photography on Instagram as well. And now I'm open for questions if you have any. So you can ask me anything. Are there no questions? Okay. Which lens? Soham is asking which lens is most suited for portraits. When it comes to lenses, I believe that all lenses are beautiful, but for portraits, it's always beneficial to go for telephoto lenses, which means that focal length of more than at least 50 mm. So if you want a very affordable lens, you can go for 50 mm f1.8. It's one of the best lenses that I use for portraits, but if you have more budget, you can go for 85 mm. So yeah, when it comes to portraits, go for bigger focal lengths. Does that answer your question?
Okay, can I interrupt? Students, please unmute your mics and ask so that it can be an interactive session with the speaker. It becomes much more interesting for the speaker as well. And if possible, switch on your cameras and ask the doubts. Someone had raised the hand, right? You can just unmute and ask the question if you have.
Ma'am, I have one. Shall I? Mm. Ma'am, it's a basic question. What do you love about the photography? The most important thing.
The most important thing that I love about photography will definitely be showing the human emotion and personality. Like every person is different, and we go through so many different kinds of feelings and emotions throughout the day. Uh, but we don't really communicate those to everyone, right? And there are certain times and when I feel that if I don't capture that moment, I am not able to communicate that emotion. So definitely it would be communication of emotions and feelings for me. Manasi has asked a question. If a person has social anxiety, that is fear of going outside, but loves natural photography, how would the person cope up with the dilemma? You can always go out when there are less people, so early mornings. Avoid, if you want to avoid people, there are lots of like places where, and there are certain times of the day, I would say like before sunset, you can always go and capture nature. The light would be really beautiful. So you can always find a way out.
I had a doubt. Like, I
Yes.
have done like nature photography, like I have done bird photography and flowers, but
Okay.
I just can't means I don't get that much time like photographing public moments, like in a wedding
Mhm.
or in a birthday party or like
Okay.
in an anniversary, because I
So,
usually get stuck, like I don't get enough time and just miss the moment. So are there
okay.
any tips to just capture the moments quickly?
Capturing the moments quickly would be the answer would be have a very high shutter speed for like technically when we talk about it. You should have shutter speed of at least 1/200th of a second or more. And secondly, observation. Observation is very important. And don't have your lens cap on. And the camera should be on mode. It shouldn't be on off mode. And if you have your settings perfect, then you won't miss this. You won't miss the moment at all. And you have to be very, very like you have to enhance your observation skills. You have to be very careful, like that you're not missing. And also anticipating sometimes helps. Like if I'm in a setting where there are lots and lots of people, and I know there is people are buying something, for example, in the market, and I know that I want to capture a shot of the person giving the product to the customer or the shot of the customer giving away the money. So I will know when will that happen, right? So I'll be ready with my camera before the moment even comes. So sometimes it helps to anticipate and to know the process ahead of time. So you can be present when the moment is actually happening.
Okay. And
Okay.
while in the evening or like in the night, keeping a
Mhm.
high ISO will might ruin the photo, or it's okay.
It's okay. It's okay. You have to figure out the limits of your camera. At what ISO does graininess appear so much? Are you okay with that amount of graininess, or are you not okay with, like, you'll have to figure out what style works for you. And it's okay to use higher ISO. I don't think about that much. If you have no picture versus a grainy picture, it's better to get a picture
Okay.
than not getting a picture at all, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's always just like a trial and error.
Of course, yeah. It's like any other skill. You'll have to practice a lot.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning,
Welcome.
ma'am. Good
Good
morning, ma'am.
morning.
This is Ayush Jain here. I was having one question regarding taking videos and photography out there.
Hmm.
Beside the studies, I'm also a part-time YouTuber. So
Okay.
capturing the videos for my YouTube channel,
Hmm.
one thing I found is that if you're suppose not using the camera or the higher quality lenses, and if we do it on our phone, so I
Hmm.
have purchased one phone Mi 10i, which is 108 megapixel camera. So I
Hmm.
was thinking that if you could give me some tips regarding if suppose I want to take or capture a video through my
Hmm.
mobile phone. So what should be the setting in ISO and all that kind of things? White balance, ISO, and there are many different things which I don't understand. So if you could clear those terms, I mean, it will be very helpful for me.
Yeah, if your camera or if your phone camera has all these settings, I would suggest read a bit more about like white balance is a very complex topic, but what I can say is for now you can use the auto white balance, but depending on the light conditions, you will have to pick the white balance in your phone camera. Like for example, if it's only tube lights are on, okay, so you'll have to use your fluorescent white balance. But if it's only let's say if you're out in the sun, auto white balance still works. If it's only natural light but you're in shade, then the shade one will work that way. And the shutter speed, I don't think you can change that in the video mode,
No.
right? But when you're taking a picture, you can figure out like if it's a very fast moving subject or like if there's a lot of movement happening, then you'll have to go for a higher shutter speed, like at least like 1/200th of a second or more.
All
But
right.
if it's a more stable subject, like if it's just like we people are there and we are not moving a lot, right? We're just speaking. So you can use a lower shutter speed as well for clicking the pictures. Like
All right.
even 1/100th of a second will be fine. So like I would suggest, because there are so many topics, I would like you to, read more about these in detail and then practice at different settings. Like you can do your own experiments in using your phone, and you'll also understand the limits of your gadget. Like
Okay.
what is something they cannot capture very well, or what are the things your phone can capture very well. So that would help you. And the composition and other things that I told you will help you even in your video work through your phone. And you can read a bit more about rule of thirds,
Okay.
which I didn't have the time to touch upon that. That helps a lot in figuring out where to place your subject in your
Okay.
frame.
And ma'am, secondly, I was having one more doubt. You told me about experimenting the things with the camera.
Yes.
So, as a novice, when you started the photography, you might be having a mobile and you just go around and take the photographs. Means just as a passion when you were a
Mhm.
novice. So, at that time, how it was like means which all the apps there are in the market available which are best for doing these kind of things, because a normal camera won't help me to gain that type of picture and razor sharp quality which are being provided by the DSLRs and all those kind of high quality cameras.
Mhm.
So, what app would you suggest me to download so that it will be at the par if suppose I take the photography even with my mobile or capture a video?
Okay. When I actually like when I was starting photography, we didn't have smartphones. We didn't have such good cameras only. So I didn't rely on mobile that much. But even now, like I have an iPhone 8 Plus, I think. Yeah. So I don't really use any apps. I just try to compose my images like before I press the shutter button. I try to compose them very well, like before. Like I look at the around the edges of the image a lot, that I'm not including any distracting elements. And then the only like the regular phone editor, the photos editor I use, I don't use any other. Like I do, share the photographs I take through my phone on my like stories and all every day, so you can like assess yourself. I don't like the resolution, no matter whichever phone it is. It's like you just cannot achieve that amount of resolution as compared to DSLR or mirrorless cameras. It's just not possible because of the size of the camera lens and the sensor that's there in the phone cameras. It's very small, so it cannot achieve it. So it's impossible. All you can do is like just compose very well and know your light. You have to understand lighting, like if you want to
Alright.
like get there.
Yes, ma'am. If you can share your Insta ID so that you told me that there are many stories and all
Yeah.
kind of things so that I can
Hold
go.
on. So maybe I can share the QR code. So wait a
Alright.
minute. Can you see? Can you see this?
No, ma'am, it's now visible.
Is it visible?
Yes, the screen is seen.
Yes, visible.
Yeah. So the QR code is there, so you can just scan it, and I can also post it in the chat, or
Or
Dr.
maybe you
Divya can
can.
also share.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I can share with the students during my lectures. I can definitely share with them.
Yeah, or I can just post here, like
Ayush,
in
Alright.
what
the
about
chat.
that? I'll share it during the lecture. Just remind me. Uh, yeah,
Alright. Yeah,
yeah. I'll definitely make a point to share. No problem.
sure, sure. Yeah.
Oh, I'm really thankful. Nina, you accepted the invitation within a very short duration of time, and I'm sure students had a wonderful time. So maybe if there are many interesting students, I mean many students who are interested for further interaction with you, I can try organizing one more session. So yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
and that can only be Q&A, so uh, that helps
Yes,
a lot, I think, the students, like if
that's
they just
true.
ask questions.
Yeah, yeah, no problem. So I can definitely see how many students are interested in I mean one more session or maybe more than one. So I can try
Yeah,
organizing it in the college.
yeah.
Yeah, thank
No.
you. Mayur, you
Thank
can
you so
maybe
much.
yeah, you can give a thank you note for the end of the session. Thanks a
Yes,
lot.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So thank you, ma'am, for your presence. So it would be great pleasure to listen to you. And when we see the picture, I think each and every picture is trying to tell you something, and the picture is emphasize you to listen to his or her story. Also, through the pictures, you are creating awareness in society for a social cause. So it would be my great pleasure to talking to you, and thank you so much, ma'am, for your precious time. Thank you.
Welcome. I enjoyed thoroughly. I enjoyed a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Students who have lectures, please log out of the session.